Joining me now, John Wilner Hotline. And this weekend, John, was a really weird weekend of college football. But for you, you were out on the ground, out at a couple games throughout the weekend. Tell us a little bit about what you saw.
Try to take advantage of the Big Ten Friday night scheduling.
Mhm.
Got a double dip in. I was at Washington, Rutgers, and Seattle on Friday night, and then drove to Oregon, Indiana, and Eugene on Saturday. And it's good to be at games, but it also makes it hard to see everything else. Um, and certainly, the Husky game it was really a weird scene
Mhm.
because the stadium, I don't know, was probably only about two-thirds full because the Mariners game five. It was terrible timing
Mm.
for Washington. They had their homecoming game. It's on a Friday against Rutgers, and it's conflicting with Mariners game five. But good performance from Washington. Oregon, Indiana was certainly very revealing. There's no doubt in Indiana now at this point. They are arguably the Big Ten favorites. But I was able to kind of keep close tabs on what was going on with the Arizona schools against the Utah schools.
Real quick on Washington, too, since he's from here, Damon Williams Jr., getting to
Yep.
see him in person out there. What was that like for you? Because he's really just on a tear right now.
Well, he is, and it was a record-setting game for Damon. He
Mhm.
set UW's single game record for the most total yards by a quarterback. I don't remember the number off the top of my head, but he threw for 400. He ran for over 100, so he was at like 540, 550. He broke the record set by Marcus Tuiasosopo. Yeah, so a little context. Rutgers is terrible defensively,
Mhm.
right? Iowa scored 38 points on Rutgers, which is like anybody else scoring 70, you know?
Right. Yeah.
But also, equally true, it was terrific and is playing very well. He's in a perfect offense. Jed Fish, you know, it is designed to bring out the best in Damon Williams. He's got an elite receiver. He's got an elite running back with him. They are very good offensively.
And are you surprised they're not ranked? 5-1, only loss coming to number one Ohio State. It was a game where they had a lot of chances. They couldn't finish drives from what I remember seeing. But are you surprised they're still outside the top
Yeah,
25, or does
that's
that
a
feel
big
right?
story in Seattle. I am a little bit. I am an AP voter. I do have them ranked this week.
Mhm.
Um,
Yep.
Part of the problem is you can look and say, well, they really haven't beaten anybody, right?
Right.
They played one good team and got thumped. Ohio State beat them badly. But Ohio State is going to do that to 120 or 25 schools, right?
Right.
Ohio State's defense is next level. So, you know, you look at all the other results on Washington's ledger, and yeah, they probably deserve to be ranked. I have them 22 maybe. But, you know, and part of that is because they played a poor non-conference schedule. They've so far, you know, Maryland and Rutgers aren't very good. They'll have some opportunities here coming up, including this week. They go to the Big House for the big noon game.
Mhm. Oregon, Indiana, too. I think in the offseason, a lot of people were wondering who's going to be the next Indiana sort of
Yeah.
Cinderella run to the CFP. It kind of seems like it's them again. I mean, they're even better than last year. You can't really call them a Cinderella story, but Indiana is last year's Indiana, it seems like, but even better, right?
Well, they are better because they're better on the lines of scrimmage.
Yeah.
I mean, they outplayed Oregon in the trenches, which
Mhm.
to me was the most surprising development. They got steady pressure on Dante Moore. Oregon could not run the ball consistently. And Indiana was able to move the ball when they needed to on the ground. I was very impressed with their play at the line of scrimmage. That's the biggest difference. Fernando Mendoza is an upgrade over Curtis Rourke. I think he's, you know, modest upgrade. The real difference is how good they are up front. And you know, the Oregon situation is interesting because you kind of have to reassess that Penn State game, right? That does not resonate the way it did at the time, given the way Penn State has played. And so you're left thinking, maybe Oregon's not that good. I mean, they're good, but maybe instead of Oregon being a top 5 or 6 team, maybe Oregon's really only a top 15 team. Now, we don't know that, but we do know that Penn State's bad And we do know that Indiana went into Eugene, and if Fernando Mendoza hadn't made a bad decision, turned into a pick six, that's 30-13 Indiana, not 30-20.
Speaking of Penn State, when's the last time a team that you thought or many thought that would be ready to get over the hump and get a national championship has this happened? Three straight losses. They fired James Franklin. They're sick of that. They don't want
Yep.
him around anymore. I can't recall a time where I've seen it. I know last year Florida State had high expectations and that sort of folded, but I haven't quite seen it like I've seen it with Penn State. Have you?
I haven't. I haven't. But the thing is, it's 2 weeks ago, they were like a play away from beating Oregon. And if they
Yep.
win that game, they're number one.
Yep.
In 2 weeks, they went from almost number one in a game everybody was talking about as a high level. These are two playoff teams, all the, and he's gone.
Mhm.
And I, you can make the case, you can understand why Penn State would do it, but you could also say, goodness gracious, what an overreaction, right?
Mhm.
$50 million for the buyout. Uh, it is an incredible development and well reflects this day and age. I mean, look at who's got UCLA's fired their coach, Arkansas's fired their coach, Penn State, right? There's going to be more. Wisconsin could be next. With
Mhm.
Luke Fickell, I mean, Oklahoma State fired their coach. Florida could be next. There's going to be more.
Mhm.
And if you think in the broader context of the coaching carousel, last off season there weren't many. I think only
Mhm.
four power schools fired their coaches because everybody was saving that money for the revenue sharing. Now everyone's figured out how they're going to pay for revenue sharing, and they're thinking like, "Oh man, we got to be good. We can't deal with losing." This is going to be a wild coaching carousel next 2-3 months. There's going to be a lot more coaches fired by December 1st.
And it's definitely going to be kind of like 2 years ago where Saban retires and it's this domino effect of all these things. It sounds like, already some jobs open. Penn State firing James Franklin's going to do
Yep.
that. Early sort of takes, who are the names that you're looking around and hearing about? I see a lot of Matt Rule. I see a lot of Kurt Signetti, a couple
Yeah.
people mentioning Kenny Dillingham. I don't know if I see that, but where do you lean on that?
Yeah. Dillingham, I don't think ASU fans really have a whole lot to worry about there.
Yeah.
Now, there might be one or two jobs that come up where you got to be a little bit concerned, but I would be very, very surprised if he left. Um, So the Penn State names, Kirk Signetti, obviously he's done an incredible job in Indiana. He's from Pittsburgh.
Mhm.
Matt Rule is a Penn State guy. So that's why they are immediately connected to that job.
Mhm.
And Penn State is right now top of the food chain job, right? And I don't offhand, I'm not sure if there will be an opening at a job that is more prestigious than Penn State. I mean, that's easy top 10 job, right?
Mhm.
Uh, But we'll see. The SEC is going to have, they've already got Arkansas open. There's going to be more in the SEC, and that's where you'll see some real marquee openings. The one that I think is worthwhile, I don't think Michigan is going to do something on Sharon Moore, but man, there's a groundswell now about his performance. And if they end up this season like 5-7 ish, there'll be a lot of buzz about whether Michigan's going to fire him.
John Wilner, Wilner Hotline, joining us here for a few minutes, switching gears on over to the Arizona schools. So we'll start with Arizona State.
Yep.
Just got the brakes beat off them, out physical against Utah, but now
Yes.
they have to quickly turn the page and get to Texas Tech,
Woo!
who out physical Utah. I know Utah's Devin Dampier was banged up that week, yada yada, but Texas Tech was more physical than even Utah.
Yes.
Generally speaking, I mean, this is kind of it for ASU if they want to repeat
Yep.
as Big 12
This is
champions,
it.
right?
This 2 week stretch is it for them. Absolutely. Um, the ASU thing, you have to account for the Levitt injury, right? Obviously, in how you're assessing that loss. My view is the the unexpected was the way the defense played,
Yeah.
right? I would have, if you had asked me before the game, knowing Levitt wasn't going to play, all right, how's this going to unfold? I would have said it feels like Utah 27-17
Hmm.
or 27-14, 24-10, right? You could see ASU's defense keeping a minute for a while and eventually just kind of folding under the weight of a lack of offensive help. I did not expect ASU to get run over like they did. It's almost like Levitt's injury and absence had a psychological effect on the defense as well as the offense, you know. And I guess you can understand that. But the Texas Tech game is gigantic for them. I'm not going to guess whether he's going to play or not at this point because I thought he was going to play until what, Thursday. I thought he was
Yeah.
playing last week. But yeah, their defense has got to show up. Texas Tech is very physical. They spent 28, $30 million on this roster, and a lot of it was devoted to the lines of scrimmage, which was very smart of them. Now, the other thing is Baron Morton's, their quarterback, is banged up and is day to day. So you've got each quarterback is hurt to a certain extent. I think ASU will bring everything it's got emotionally, physically, and I would expect it to be a close game. But yeah, ASU loses. That's it for the Big 12 title and for the playoff because at 3 losses, they're not going to get in as an at-large.
I think it's a fair point, speaking on how Levitt being out affects the defense. All week long, you see him practicing, running around
Yeah.
for ones, and then all of a sudden you get to Thursday, it's, oh, he might be out. And then you get to Saturday, game day, he's in a boot. And so maybe the defense
Yep.
at that point was like, hey, Jeff Sims, we love him. He's a good leader on this team. We respect him, but we know we're going to have to get more stops than if Sam were playing. And so it almost felt like watching the game, they were just pressing a little
Yeah.
bit more. And then Utah, I mean, honestly, they're going to do that to a lot of teams.
They
Devin
are.
Campier's the best running quarterback in college football at this point, and so it's no surprise they were able to do that.
Nope.
It's just surprising how often they were able to do it.
Yeah, it is. And fans underestimate the importance of complementary football, right? The way the defense affects the offense and vice versa. And you see a lot of times when an offense is struggling, the defense holds up, and it's happened to Utah over the years a lot. The
Mhm.
defense holds and holds and holds, and then, I mean, in fact, it happened to Utah against Texas Tech,
Yeah.
right? I mean, that was a pretty close game, and then you could just see the defense kind of gave out at the last 15, 20 minutes, and that is a challenge a lot. I think it was a challenge for ASU, right? When you can't move the ball, it's 3 and out, 3 and out, 6 and out. Your defense gets worn down. They have got to bring it though, because Texas Tech is at least as big a challenge as Utah was. Being at home will help, but they cannot just let Texas Tech run the ball at will.
Bigger Big 12 picture then. So let's say Texas Tech right now, they're in the driver's seat to be one of the teams in the Big 12 championship. If they
They
were to
also have the
win,
easiest path. I would add,
mhm.
after ASU, their schedule is by far of the contending teams. Their schedule is by far the most manageable.
So if they win, because I agree, I think if they win this game, even if they were to lose this game, I still think they would end up in the Big 12 championship. Regardless, who do you really see as that second team trying to compete with Texas Tech? Because we look at the AP poll, and it is a pretty big separation among the Big 12. And
Yeah,
Texas Tech is clearly the best team, but who do you think is that second team?
it's interesting because I would have told you, well, Iowa State, and then they've lost 2 in a row. Or
Mhm.
I would have told you Arizona State, but then the Levitt situation, all that. Um, I would offer up Utah.
Mhm.
The Utah BYU winner, and the Holy War is this week.
Mhm.
Utah BYU winner, I think, will be in there. And Cincinnati's interesting. I mean, you talked about in the Big Ten who's this year's Indiana, and there's been a lot of discussion in the Big 12 who's this year's ASU, and it might be Cincinnati. They've already beaten Iowa State. But if I were going to guess, I would say it's the winner of the Holy War is going to be the best bet for second place. BYU is pretty good on offense and very good on defense. We'll see how their freshman quarterback Bear Bachmeier holds up in the Holy War, but that would be my guess. It is, but it's typical Big 12. It's mayhem.
Looking down in Tucson too, so the Arizona Wildcats double overtime loss to number 18 or previously number 18 BYU. But they played really well. When you look at the bigger picture, I know now they're 1-2 in Big 12 play, 4-2 on the season. What are you making of this team? It feels like a team that's closer to what they were in 2023, but maybe not as good as that.
Yeah.
Definitely
Yep.
better than last year for sure.
Yep. I think we can clearly define Arizona as halfway between Arizona 23 and Arizona 24.
Yeah.
Um, they, they should have won that game, but the fact that they went toe to toe with BYU, huge improvement over what would have happened last year, right?
Yeah.
They are good enough to beat the bottom half of the Big 12, and they're not good enough to beat the top teams in the Big 12. Fortunately for them, they've got enough of the bottom half on the schedule, I think, to get two more wins. They should get bowl eligible, right?
Yeah.
If they're bowl eligible, if they're 6-6 and they're competitive in these games, I think Brent Brennan will be okay. But that's to me, that's the challenge, and it's not just it's learning how to win a game like that. You've got the lead over BYU. How do you close it out, right?
Mhm.
That's what they've got to learn. If they don't learn it, they're going to have a trouble against the two or three teams on their still on their schedule that are clearly better, better equipped than they are, including ASU, right?
Yeah. I think that's going to be an interesting one. I mean, including the Territorial Cup at the end of the year. If ASU continues to get banged up,
Yeah.
Arizona has, enough to make that game competitive and maybe
Yep.
win,
Oh, for
especially if there
sure.
were a Jeff Sims in that game.
The thing about ASU is it's on the everything's on the margins,
Hmm.
right? They've and we've seen that they got a 3-point loss and they got two 3-point wins already.
Hmm.
There's three or four plays in three or four games that are going to decide ASU's trajectory, and injuries is also part of it. I thought they were very healthy last year relative to other
Hmm.
teams. They got the benefit of good health. Does that happen a second time? Doesn't appear to be. Do you get the breaks on those handful of plays in those games?
Yep.
It's hard to get those twice. It's not like ASU is so talented that they can just win those games on talent, right? And so when you're playing on the margins at that level, the difference between 10-2 and 7-5, it's tough to do it 2 years in a row. It's very difficult, especially in a conference like the Big 12, where the talent difference between 1 and 16, well, or 1 and 15 this year, uh, is pretty small. So we'll see
Yeah.
about ASU.
Yeah, I agree. I'm glad you brought that up because I kept saying in preseason to people, listen, I get the expectations are to run it back and go
Yeah,
again. But last year, they very easily could have been a 7 or 8 win team. And this year, it looks like that's very much realistic. There's still a shot at 9 wins, maybe 10 if they pulled off a win against Texas Tech. But like you said, it all comes down to those
it,
margins. And to
it
have
does.
that
And the
fall your
the
way
the
is tough.
thing that ASU has going for it in that regard is that nobody understands that better than Dillingham.
Hmm.
And he is accounting for that in how he manages the team and the culture. And that gives them a chance to try to repeat what they were doing. But he totally gets that, it's everything is razor's edge.
Yeah. Last thing before I get you out of here, John, I haven't had a chance to really look, but as you look at the top teams in the country, I think almost everybody agreed on the top three relative to the order: Ohio State, Miami, Indiana. Do
Yep.
you think any team this year is elite? Because I mean, we're seeing so many teams just falter. Or is this one of those years where it's just going to be who's healthiest at the end and who's
Yeah.
able to survive? Because it doesn't seem like there's an elite team this year.
No, there's not. And I would throw Texas A&M in there.
Mhm.
I have my AP poll or ballot was Miami. I've had Miami number one for many weeks. Miami, Ohio State, Indiana, A&M, and I don't remember who I have fifth. But I agree with you generally. The team that has, to me, the potential to get to that next level is Ohio State.
Mhm.
Their defense is absolutely dynamite.
Yeah.
And what they've been able to do is let Julian Sayin, their rookie quarterback, kind of ease into the role. The defense is so good that they haven't had to put a whole lot onto him, and they're kind of letting him develop the confidence. If he is playing like a sophomore or junior by December, then they're going to be awfully hard for anybody to beat because that defense is it's better than it was last year. And they've got the best player, Jeremiah Smith. So if Sayin can evolve into a
Mhm.
quarterback who can make big plays and avoid big mistakes in the playoff, to me, that's the team that I look at and think from where everybody is now, who can get to that next level. I would say Ohio State's got the best chance.
Don Wilner, Wilner Hotline. You can find all his content over on our website at sports360az.com. John, thank you so much for taking the time today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks a lot, Jordan.
Yep, we'll be back after this timeout.